Good afternoon, Don Setti from CYBRI in New York. Hope everybody's well today. I'm joined here with my colleague, Paul Kulber. Paul, how are you today, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. This is segment 4 in our Introduction to Penetration Testing series, Network Layer Tests. Segment 1 was an overview on intro on pen testing. Segment 2, we covered off on the different types of tests. In segment 3, dove into cloud. And today, Paul's going to take us through network layer tests and some of the different simulation types, as well as infrastructure and hosts. So, Paul, maybe talk a little bit about some of the differences between internal and external. And I hear clients saying, well, if you can't hack the external, why do I need an internal?
Yeah, some of these types are quite straightforward. External, is everything that's publicly accessible by the internet. Internal is everything that really isn't in your company. And we often get asked, why bother testing the internal? When a hacker is only going to see the outside. And really, that's wrong on two different levels. One is that hackers get in without hacking you a lot. There are many cases where phishing leads to compromise. There are many things of, for example, with the latest SolarWinds, a supply chain compromise where, they didn't even need to hack you in order to get inside your network. And then the other part is that, you're not always fighting against hackers. They're always malicious users or people on the inside who have ill intent. And so that's the big main reasons. The other reason is just ensure that, everything that you're doing internally from a security perspective is where it should be. So that's kind of one of those reasons. And, we also threw in a wireless test and a remote connection test, especially the latter is being more and more important nowadays. A lot of people are connecting over VPNs that were hastily set up and really trying to get those working. Wireless testing isn't as common on smaller companies, but it really helps show if your wireless infrastructure is secure and what can or can't be accessed. The number of times where I'm on a guest network and turns out that I can get to the internal network and even inconsistently get to it, where I remember one test where I could only get to 4 computers from the guest network. So very random rules that should not have existed, but they do open up compromise. So, we always recommend testing from every angle because you really never know what's going to happen.
And you're also obviously you're looking at routers and firewalls and testing those as well.
Yeah, exactly. So everything's standard, your network devices, as you said, routers, firewalls, as well as everything like servers, user computers, laptops, pretty much anything connected. We're going to even be looking at things like your uninterrupted power supplies. Those are fun things to play around with because, you can turn those off if you can guess the password, and more often than not, people haven't even set that. So, not the most damaging thing, but it's one of those, things that can be done.
So when we're talking about the types of simulations that you and your team do, from black box to gray and to white box, maybe should everything be a black box test? What are your kind of questions you would ask?
Yeah. A lot of people come to us and they're like, well, shouldn't I just do a black box test? No one's going to have information on my networks, and I want a real hacker simulation, so I'm not going to give you anything. And we always like to start off by number one, black box is a legitimate use case if you have reached a maturity level where you really want to test things and how well you're hiding them. More often than not, most customers aren't at the maturity level, and black box is more just to slow down the tests and kind of gets in the way. Beyond that, hackers, they're going to spend a lot of time getting the information or already have it in some cases. So it's not always a legitimate thing to say that a hacker will never have any information going into it. Just, if the engagement we do is only supposed to last a week, we want to really get as much done as possible. And if it's your 4th pen test, it's probably time to move from a white box to something a little bit more gray or black, where you're testing a little bit more of the advanced infrastructure. But if it's your first one, the information will get you a lot more results and a lot more things you can fix, as opposed to just slowing down the test, and then you end up paying for us to do work that you could have just emailed us.
So it's about helping the client gain a certain level of efficiency, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Within that, especially as you're doing these over quarters and years with clients that we really know the business on.
Yep, exactly.
So we're going to move on here right now, Paul, to hosts and various types of infrastructure. What do you think about finding what to test in terms of how deep you're actually going when you have like certain findings and certain things that you're seeing? I mean, how do you determine what rabbit holes to go down?
Yeah, that's a good question, and usually we get asked this by the people who are conducting the pen test, and they're like, I have 10,000 assets, and I have a budget for 2 weeks of testing. Help me out. And obviously, the great thing is if you're doing a PCI test or HIPAA test, you can specify it to those environments, and hopefully you have a very nice segmented, delineated environment. And those are going to be something where you can focus on it. So if you're doing a pen test for PCI purposes, you do it on your PCI environment. You can do it further, but it just really gets down to your budget. Now, if you need to classify them, we recommend picking a representative sample, something where it's going to be, a little bit of each host. So that way we get some of the user network, some of this, if we can't test everything. There are always going to be times when we can't do it, or not every office is connected in a certain way. And we're really here to help you remediate things. Another thing is if you have a pain point, so you're worried about your Citrix environment, and you're like, oh well, I'm not really sure, how we're doing there. Could you test that? Or to be honest, in other ways, if you're looking for budget for your infrastructure, you can always say, see what you can do over there. I have some Windows 2003 servers I'm trying to upgrade, so if you get a lot of findings, I can justify it to my bosses. So those are always great ways to do it. As someone who's going to be doing the tests, I'm going to also be making my determinations. So, it helps us if you kind of point us in the right direction, and you say, yeah, this is, things that start with this prefix are going to be more important. So it would be great if you could test that. Just helping guide us, because if I see 5 computers with the same vulnerability, I'm not going to try and exploit on every single one. If it works on 1 or 2, then I'll just assume it works for everything else. But if you have one that is, you say, oh, maybe it has more protection or less protection, that kind of helps us.
There's a collaborative effort between your team and the client, and then also, a certain level of the right method and approach that your team is using based on your experience doing this as to how deep and where you go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we always try to say that we're not here to find what you did wrong, but help you continue to do better things. Oftentimes the infrastructure team is so busy, just getting things working, that it ends up taking away a lot of their time, and not everyone's perfect, and so it helps to have an extra set of eyes. So that's why we like the collaboration, so that we're there to work with you, we can help you. And there are times when I might think this vulnerability is going to happen, and we'll actually message to the client and be like, hey, I think this, but I don't want to spend 5 hours trying to design an exploit. Does this actually happen? And sometimes they're like, oh yeah, go ahead, take this down. Other times they're like, oh no, we actually patched that, a month before you came, because that's what everyone does. And so it's always a good thing when you can work with people.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. Well, Paul, I really appreciate your time this afternoon, and to our audience, thank you for your time. This was again segment 4 on network, and I believe sometime in the near future, we're going to talk about, I believe, social. Is that it? Social?
Yeah, I think social engineering is coming next.
Oh, it was a fun topic.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Don.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye.